Pod Courts, le podcast qui prolonge l'échange.
Hi, in this podcast, I have the pleasure to present an exclusive interview that Roger Federer gave to Courts magazine. It was a little over a year ago, a few days before the start of the US Open. A long chat to be discovered in two stages, the first part of which you could listen to last Monday. In the second part, the Swiss player talks about his unique relationship with the Wilson brand and its famous magic rackets, as well as what tennis, its culture, its history, symbolizes for him. Roger Federer, GOLDFINGER, welcome to Pod Courts.
GOLDFINGER, he's the man with the Midas touch, a spider's touch.
I mean, talking a little bit now about equipment, which is going to have a slight Wilson focus to it. You've played through an era of tennis that had, you look back over tennis, quite a significant sort of racket and string innovations in it. You adopted them with hybrid stringing, larger head size on your pro stuff. I mean, it's difficult. This is a difficult question, I think, unless you're very close. But where do you see the next trend or big leap in tennis technology? What are you seeing? Are people taking weight out? Where's the next big thing? Lower tensions, higher tensions?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big switch has definitely been obvious from the wooden rackets, to the rackets we have today, and then racket head size, how that's grown, and then string technology, how that's really gave us an opportunity to be able to hit through the ball in a completely different way than we could do it before, in terms of angle, power, consistency, and all that stuff. So I would think, if you ask me, when it comes to the racket, the biggest jump might be another type of string that is just going to give us even more velocity, more spin, more power, but with control. That I see being another leap there. I don't know how much more can be done in the racket, but we see more powerful rackets more than ever. And guys are getting bigger and stronger and taller and all that stuff. So I think, it could be a bit of both, a combination, but I do think that maybe we have most potential with the strings still, because not long ago when I came on tour, I also still played with all gut strings. So maybe there is a certain sort of way to create like some other incredible type of string.
Yeah. I mean, with your RF97, I think with it, it's an axe. It's not for the faint-hearted. I mean, what is it about the weight, balance, swing weight, all those things that make it right for you? I mean, it's not dissimilar to, the original Pro Stuff 85 in terms of some of the specs. So you can see the sort of pattern.
Well, I think you grow up with a certain feel you like, grip size, swing weight, the weight in general. I switched to that Pro Stuff 85, the racket that Pete and also Stefan Edberg used to play back when I was 14 already. I mean, that was like you say, an axe or a hammer in my hand at the time, because I was still, I was half the size I am today, basically, and I was playing with it. Nowadays I know that kids grow up differently with different types of the softer balls, the smaller rackets, maybe for a longer period of time, but eventually you got to switch to the solid racket. And I think you just got to, every player has different preferences, and then your game also shapes towards the racket you play with, and vice versa too. I think it's actually a very versatile racket. I think I feel like everybody can play with it, and that's why I'm happy Wilson created the different types of models with different weights, because I understand that not everybody has the power to play with the lighter racket. But the advantage you get with a heavier racket is that you have less vibrations, you have easier power, and having easier power also helps you just on a daily basis. It's easier to play consistently, better and nicer. It's just nicer to play. And that's my biggest switch also I've realized when I went from the 85 to 90 and then from the 90 to the 97. It's just how much easier it is on a daily basis to play with the RF 97 I'm playing with now. Because I remember with the 85, I used to play and just think every ball I have to be in perfect position not to shank it. And now that's obviously very different with the 97 now.
that 85 had a tiny sweet spot. But I mean, much bigger. Yeah. I saw Wilson put some footage online of you having a hit with their, for fun. I think you were doing it with their new Clash racket. Much lighter racket.
I mean, exactly.
I think with that as well. I mean, that's so easy. You go from the racket you're playing with, that RF97, to, some days you just think, man, it'd just be so much easier if I could, hit that easy racket with the kids. I do.
Absolutely. I played with that Clash and I was like, oh, wow, look how it just jumps out of the strings and it's just so much easier. Now, I don't think, I could play with it, I'm sure, on the tour as well if I did the proper weight and balance for me, being able to return a 142 rocket from somebody serving big. You need something in your hand that can absorb that. But it's true. I think nowadays, as a junior growing up, you have great choices of Wilson rackets to choose from, that really help you with the game. I do believe still it cannot be all about the racket. It also has about how you evolve your game. But that Clash is a great example of how they make it easier for players getting onto the tour, or not onto the tour, but just going on a tennis court, because it's just that much easier.
Yeah. I mean, the next three questions are a little bit about tennis in a sort of wider context. I mean, and these are some questions Wilson wanted you to have a think about. What the first one was, I mean, has tennis taught you any lessons over the years that you think are relevant to real life off court? Real life. How do you adapt what you learn on court?
Yes, of course. I think anticipation. On a tennis court, we anticipate every single move we do. Basically, is he going to play there or there? And I think in your life, you do sometimes the same. Not every step you take, but in life we also anticipate a lot. We try to plan a lot, and as a tennis player, we have to do that. Taking decisions, micro decisions on a tennis court. What's going to happen next? Where shall I serve? What am I going to do? But then also, just in general, from a business perspective too, I had to take so many decisions. Who I want to work with, which tournaments to play, how are we going to do this? Yes or no to sponsorship or press request, whatever it may be. So I learned a lot there, and then just the sheer all the stuff when it comes to being able to battle through sort of the perseverance we're talking about before. Fighting through injury, overcoming tough moments, coming back from defeat. How do I handle it now? Coming back from my Wimbledon loss, am I just gonna say oh, that was too bad? I don't care, or am I gonna say well, that kind of was terrible. I need to go back on the practice court and train really hard. Or, you know what? I just need a break. How do you get back from a moment like this? And how do you stay motivated after you've won it all and done that? So I see a million things that I've learned from tennis. So I'm super grateful.
And tennis, the culture of tennis, there's some things in it that remain constant, but it's also forever changing as generations go through it. I mean, in three words, how would you, how would you describe culture of tennis today?
So I think tennis has always been an elegant sport. So I'd say it's an elegant sport. I think people see it that way too. There is the sort of the ballerina effect as well that we have on a tennis court. I think it's an arena sport, in a way that I think the stadium's big but not too big. So I think it's intimate, So I think it's really elegant. It's maybe one of the most global sports. We go on the world tour from January to November. So I always compare it to us being a musician and going on world tour. And musicians don't do it every single year, but we have to, and we do it every single year. So I think it's super global. And then I just think it's competitive. It's super competitive. There's a lot of tennis players out there. With the ranking system that you have to defend what you did the year before, you're only as good as sort of your next match. And it makes it very hard, in some ways to be at the top. And I think the competition is huge. So I'd say it's, elegant, global, and competitive.
I got that. I had two of those. I had heritage in there, which I think is the same thing as elegant.
Heritage is elegant. Yeah, it goes in that direction for sure. Yeah. And what's the other one you have?
I had global, gladiatorial, and heritage.
Oh yeah, there we go. We're very similar. Good. I'm happy we agree.
And so before we get on to the sort of couple of short, fun ones, in business, you talked about business world. relationships come and go, and you rarely, and very rarely, particularly in tennis, see an athlete stay with the same set of partners for their full career. And you've done that with Wilson.
Yeah.
We touched on it a little bit earlier with when you were talking about when you moved to the pro stuff when you were 14. But what has made you want to be with and stay with Wilson through your pro career and even before?
Well, I mean, I'd say that Wilson is very strong in the grassroots. As a junior, you're not really aware of it. All I remember is that a lot of my friends all played Wilson. And then, my heroes played Wilson, as in Sampras and Edberg. And that's the racket I wanted to sort of play with, a Wilson racket. And then when I got to know them, even at the junior level, they were all very, supportive and helpful when it came to a grip here or a string there or whatever it is. I just always felt like even the local people at Wilson were really well equipped to help already a young player to become, to make him feel special. I think that was nice for me, especially with my parents, who also come from a very normal background. We were happy with any support we could get, and getting a free racket or something that was very helpful already at a young age. So I think in some ways you also are always forever grateful, that initial help that we received. Mm-hmm. And then I think just getting to know top management and the people at Wilson, I feel like it's a family, and I don't know, I always had a great time with them. They couldn't have been nicer to me, and I think the racket, is the extension of your arm, so you want to be really comfortable with the racket and talking to them about what's the new technology and what else is going on. And I think we've always had a wonderful relationship with one another. We never had any issues ever. And, I don't see myself ever changing. So, I remember where I come from, where they've been with me all along the way. And this is more than just a business agreement in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, you're in that kind of dream scenario of having your first racket, which is the 85, then your 90, then your own custom 97, all on your garage wall one day.
Right. Well, I even had rackets before the 85. I had, I don't know, the Thunderbird or whatever it was called, and some other ones I don't even remember the names. And I played Wilson since I'm basically 8 years old. Yeah, since I started.
You mentioned last couple of short questions here. You mentioned when we were talking about the three words that describe cultural tennis, the word stadium, mm-hmm. and playing on centre court in SW19 on the one hand, all quiet and hushed, and then heading where you're going to be heading to Arthur Ashe in New York. I mean, those are very mm-hmm. very different tennis playing environments. I'm not going to ask you to choose one because that's not fair, but I think most people would find Arthur Ashe incredibly difficult to play on, people who aren't pro.
Right.
How do you keep focused when you've got that going on around you? Because it's noisy.
Well, I think the good thing is that a lot of the practice courts sometimes for us are very busy and loud. Like here now, I was practicing next to a ventilator, the last few days, just because there's a sort of a trucks driving in and out. There's the fans on the one hand. You have a ventilator on the side. So practice courts usually are a more sort of a savage environment, So usually when you go on a match court, it's much easier to focus, right? So I know the U.S. Open might be tough because it's loud. There's the pressure of the stadium. You do hear the subway going by or the train in the back. You feel like you smell the grill of the hot dogs and all that stuff, and it's loud on the change events. They play the music and people are dancing, and there almost is this culture as well that maybe fans are talking during the point to some extent, because that's what fans are allowed to do in basketball and baseball and NFL and all that stuff. But it's only in tennis that it's really this hush, super quiet environment, and then you're allowed to be loud. And I think this is the beauty of our sport, and I hope we never lose it. And that's what's so nice about Wimbledon. But I think from that standpoint, like I explained, because of the practice courts, the environment we always practice in, it never really feels like a match court unless you can practice on a center court. And in this regard, it's actually quite easy to go out on the U.S. Open court, because actually you have incredible, beautiful dimensions. There's no glare in the stadium, because of the size of the stadium. The sun cannot creep in from the side, because it's blocked by the stadium. I don't know. I just think it's a great place to play. And what I like about the U.S. Open, what I like about the pressure of the U.S. Open and Arthur Ashe is that basically you feel like the people show up there. In some ways, like at the movie theater, they eat their popcorn, and then they're waiting for something to happen. And then once you start making good shots, good points, and you show you're engaged, this is when they're like, all right, here the movie starts. Here's the entertainment factor we've been waiting for and looking for. And that's when they engage fully, and they're one of the most incredible crowds in the world that I love to play in. So I love playing at the Open. I mean, I love playing at Wimbledon too. If you ask me as a tennis guy, probably I'd pick Wimbledon just because, I have to. But the U.S. Open is, and I'm happy it's not every week Wimbledon. I'm happy it's not every week Arthur Ashe, but the combination is crazy good, and I love both equally.
Yeah, I mean, Arthur Ashe is like the modern day Colosseum in Rome. It really is that kind of atmosphere. The crowd get into it. Last couple of questions, Roger. These are short, fun ones. So, I mean, looking back, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self? So you would have started out on tour, maybe been on there a year or two. What advice would you give yourself looking back then?
Oh, well, and it's funny, in a way, maybe I'd say like, hey, don't worry, you have time, Roger, and at the same time, like, it's gonna go by fast. So it's a bit of both, because it's a lot of the times when you're young, you're like, it's got to happen right now, tomorrow. We don't have time. We got to do it. And at the same time, you realize, hey, we have time. Take your time for practice. Don't stress out about everything. So I think important is to enjoy it. And not stress too much about every little detail. Try your best. Learn quick. I think learning quick and not making the same mistakes a million times will be good. And then trust your coach. Trust your place to train and all, and then really get stuck into the details, because I do believe at the very top or on the tour, on the professional tour, it's the details that make the difference.
Yeah. Last question. What advice do you think your 50-year-old self would give you now? What's he saying to you now?
He would tell me play for a few more years.
I thought you might say that. Yeah.
Really? I don't know. I was like, come on, Roger, try to play as long as possible and enjoy yourself. I hope that's what he would say.
Yeah, I think my 50-year-old self would tell me not to shout at my kids so much.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. We can go that route too. I'm in the same place then.
Yeah. Roger, thank you ever so much for making the time for this.
Really of course, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Okay, take care. No problem.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Jeux, set et match.
C'était Pod Courts, le podcast qui prolonge l'échange.